So next up is how we're going to make the battery connectors. So if you have a spare, in this case female connector, you can put it in there to kind of hold it. Let me just show you what that's going to look like. So if you have, we ship some kits with spares of the battery side of this connector. What it's emulating is this connector here. And do not use the battery connector to do this. It's way too likely you're going to short out the battery and cause problems. If you don't have a spare, or if it didn't come with the kit, then just, I'll show you how to do it without it. But a good way to do this is just put it on gently, not all the way, because I don't want there to be a lot of contact to pull heat away. And then we try to make up the female battery connector, the male battery connector for the speed controller with this kind of acting like a template to keep these guys from shifting around if this plastic gets really hot. So the goal here really is just to keep these contacts from going someplace, because you spend too much time soldering here. All right, and then you just sort of solder it up like this. And but we're not going to do it that way, since that's not what I got in my kit, and I'm dealing with what I got. And so I'm just going to put this in the helping hands like that, just because it's pretty easy to get a good spot. Actually, the advantage of doing it this way, as opposed to with the female side from the battery, is that it's easier to get a good hold of it with the helping hands. All right, as before with the bullet connector, we're going to tin these for the same reason, which is we want known solder on here to help us. And so that tinning process again is put a little blob on the side here, just to get contact, and then flow a little solder on there. Okay, separate them a little bit. Okay. So what we do now is notice this polarity here. So this has plus on one side and minus on the other. Check. All right, and double check. I tend to reverse this all the time and I have to remake them. The other thing you need to do is put on the heat shrink, which is something I almost always forget, and then I have to redo it. It's really embarrassing. So there's 2 pieces of clear heat shrink from the kit, or whatever heat shrink you got laying around. But we don't want this to be an open connection that something can short out against on the airplane. So there's the heat shrink going on. And another thing about this heat shrink is do yourself a favor and don't have it too close to where all the action is, because this can get pretty hot. So put this down way at the bottom, all right, and then hopefully these won't get too hot and prematurely shrink the heat shrink, which is incredibly annoying. All right, so this is going to be very similar to how we did the bullet connector, except we're not going to really be doing as much of a flood operation. We're just going to try and get the inside of this thing with a nice blob of solder in there, and then we're going to put this on top and hit it some more. All right, and using our fingers to kind of run the show. So we take our solder. Notice I have really fine solder. This is, what is this? This is, what size? This is a pound of 44 rosin core, 0.8 millimeter. 0.8 millimeter. I don't know if you can read that. And it's good. I like a little bit of thin solder because it just works better for me. You can get a lot thicker solder out there, but you probably have to order this online if you want to get the thin stuff. I think it works better for our kinds of applications. So I'm just laying this in here, right? And I don't want to lay it in there for a real long time, so I'm just going to put a little blob there. I'm just going to flow it in there. So I'm convinced that I've got a nice, that got really super hot and fast. I can just tell it's just flowing everywhere super well. And then I'm going to take this, and because I want there to be a positive joint, I'm just going to put that there and then put a little finger pressure on it, and just hit the top of that blob until the whole thing goes. Just with the side of the soldering iron, everything's fresh. It should go pretty quickly. And you can just, there you go. See how that solder's all flowed up around it and stuff like that? And my finger is definitely getting a little burnt, which is fine. All right, that's great. The nice thing is that was really fast. I didn't stay on that thing for more than about 3 seconds. And then on this side, I'm going to do the same thing. Double check it's negative. The negative can be a little bit hard to read with these connectors because it's a minus with the mold line, so it kind of looks like a plus. So be careful about that. I believe I have made that mistake. All right, so same trick as before. I'm just going to hold this in here kind of flat, put a little blob, and just flow it in there, and it just picks up heat really super fast. So I don't need to get in there too hard. It's a nice gold-plated connector. And then this guy, I'm going to put in there my finger just at the level of the insulation and hit the top of the blob again until it kind of flows in there nice. I can just feel everything kind of relax as the solder gets soft. You know, I'm not super happy with that. I don't know if you can see it, but I don't quite have clear flowing solder everywhere, which is what I really want. So I'm going to hit it a little more. Just try to get a little more solder in there. There you go. Now we're good. Okay. Ouch, 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 ouch. Okay. It's fine. Don't really burn yourself. It doesn't hurt that much. It's just a little on the uncomfortably warm side of things. Okay, so that's a made-up speaker. That's a made-up battery connector. We have positive going to positive. We have negative going to negative. And then we're going to take this heat shrink, slide it over it. And we will do this via the other two techniques that I know of for shrinking heat shrink, in case you don't have a heat gun. It's a little excessive to expect that. So method one is use a lighter. You know, as with all open flames, just be careful. And that will, no, actually I'm going to do the soldering iron version first, because I think the lighter will end up getting them both. So to do the soldering iron version of heat shrinking, just go and run the side of this, kind of move a little bit, so it's stroke down so it doesn't move out. And you just kind of just stroke it with the side of the soldering iron until it shrinks all up. And, you know, it's a little ugly, but it gets the job done. You just kind of use that. Keep it moving. You don't want to burn it. You just want to get it shrinking, and it'll shrink right up. And you just kind of get in there. I'm not doing as good a job as I could because I want to leave the other one not shrunk, so I can show you how to do it a little lighter. Okay, the lighter will get them both when they're done. So the lighter technique is kind of the same idea, but take care, because now you got flame in there, right? So you just kind of get wave the flame underneath it, just move it around, just keep it moving. Don't want it to catch fire, right? Because it will catch fire. It'll get a little soot on it, but that's all right. Just get it nice and tight. Okay. And so it's a little sooty. Just wipe that off. But that's a made-up speed controller. Is we are going to power up the airplane. Turn off that soldering iron. We're done with that. So extract the receiver that has come with your airplane. I'll get the transmitter out too. Here, here. It is time to power this bad boy up. So get the receiver out. So another part in here, this is a bind clip. You're going to have to look at the manual or go online for instructions on how to deal with rebinding your receiver to your transmitter if it's not bound. These should be shipped bound, but don't lose this part. This allows you to sort of re-instruct the receiver to which transmitter it's supposed to listen to. That's the short story. All right, so I'm going to take the left servo, which is the one over here. This is the front of the airplane. This is left, this is right. And I'm going to put it in channel 2. And channel 2 is marked on the top of this particular receiver. And I know because of this receiver that the ground or brown or black, depending on what it is towards the back. And if you look really closely, and I'm not sure the lens is going to be able to handle it, there's a designation of what the channels are. So it says signal and then a little tiny plus and a little tiny minus. Okay. This is the receiver. We're going to take channel 1. Our right servo, and we're going to put it, that goes in channel 1. So I like to pull the leads straight, just so that there's no twists in them, and that just goes into channel 1 like that. And the speed controller, we'll go ahead and use the XT60 connector, and we're just going to connect these willy-nilly. It doesn't matter how they're connected. If the motor's turning the wrong way, we will just we reverse any two to reverse the direction of rotation. So that is now a connected up motor. Notice that the prop is off. We don't want the prop on for this because the motor starts turning. We don't want to have anything bad happen. All right. So we have that, and then we take our speed controller, and it also has a servo lead on it, and it is going to go into channel 3. And this one is black, red, and white. White is signal, red is positive, just like the other lead, and black is negative, which corresponds to brown on this, and also the signal is yellow instead of white. Those are just two of the major ways of designating what the 3 wires do. Okay, so that's now in channel 3, and that's going to be the gas pedal. Alright, so let's get everything away from the motor, and we just want to see whether we've got a working airplane or not. So we pull our battery off of the charger, and we've been charging, and notice we have 3 green lights, means it's charged. Pull it off, and now we're going to want to power up the transmitter, which means we have to put in the batteries. I'm sure I don't have to explain that to you. It's a very straightforward process. If you have an opportunity to get rechargeables, I strongly recommend it. These, you go through a lot of batteries flying airplanes, and they have nice rechargeable NiCads you can get. Oh, yeah, sorry, nickel metal hydrides that you can get at Walmart now and stuff that are pretty reasonably priced. And I think it's an environmentally friendly thing to do. All right. Wow, seen some life. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And put on the back plate. And there we go. We got a green light. Okay. So, so when we power up, always the throttle is all the way down, and make sure the trim tab, which is this over here, is also all the way down. All right. This one doesn't matter, and these don't matter until we start making adjustments to the signal controls. Okay. So this is the gas pedal right here, the throttle. This does nothing that we care about. This is roll. That's up and down. Okay. So let's vivify our airplane. Before we vivify, we verify again that black is going to go to black, red is going to go to red in case we did a polarity reversal, which I have done. It will destroy the battery and the speed controller most likely if you put it in wrong. All right, so we connect them up. Whoop, there we go. So that's a speed controller saying it's armed. We have servos. You can hear them moving. And if you don't have your transmitter set up for Elvon mixing, this would be a good time to do it. All right, this one is our kit ships with Elvon mixing set up. And now let's see if we have any gas. There we go. Now we want the motor to rotate, looking back to front, in a let's take a look at the prop, in a this way, which is counterclockwise. No, sorry, clockwise. We want the motor, I'll say it again, we want the motor to rotate this way, which is clockwise. All right, this is the leading edge of the prop. All right, so you can check that just by running it a little bit. Put your finger on the bell housing gently. You can see, you can almost see it there. Don't stall the motor, just let it go a little bit. Don't put your finger anyplace dumb. Just on the outside, you can tell which way it's going. This one's actually turning counterclockwise right now. So we're going to fix that. Where we're going to fix it is we're going to turn the power off on the receiver. I'm going to swap 2 of these, any 2 of them, doesn't matter. So this is the one I have here. I'm going to pull this one out. Be careful that you don't damage anything when you do it. And then we're going to put it into there, I think. Did I fail to swap them? Let's find out. Sometimes it's hard to remember. Okay. That's it. All right, that was the 2 that I wanted to switch. And now it's going clockwise. And that's the direction of rotation we want. So we have now an airplane that's vivified. It works. Transmitter's talking to this. And the next step is going to be securing these components to the deck. All right. So we'll bring. So go ahead and power down the airplane. The power down sequence is the reverse of the power up sequence. You take power off of the airplane first, then you turn off the transmitter. All right. You don't ever want to have the airplane in this configuration, which is with the transmitter off and it plugged in, because then some errant signal can get in here and start moving the prop or moving these things. You can hear even that the speed controller is a little upset. It's making sounds because it isn't getting any signal. So it might do something weird. It has nothing. You're just going to pull something out of the air and do something odd. This is less of an issue with modern equipment, but back in the day, this was a very important part of how people did this. It's also an excellent habit to have. The only time that is ever done actually is when you bind this receiver to a new transmitter or rebind it to this transmitter. And that sequence does require you to turn on the receiver, without turning on the transmitter, and consult your transmitter manual for how that works. All right. Next up, getting everything secured so this thing's protected against crashes.